Hollywood measures success in box office numbers, awards, and cultural longevity. But some films matter not because they succeeded, rather because they failed so dramatically that the industry itself had to change course. These films didn't just lose money, they collapsed studios, halted entire genres, destroyed reputations, and forced Hollywood to abandon creative philosophies it once embraced. Let's examine 10 films whose damage extended far beyond their runtime.
Kastoret! Fotografie! Kastorer!
Heaven's Gate, 1980. The damage, financial collapse of a studio, and industry-wide loss of creative freedom. By the late 1970s, Hollywood was operating under an experiment, director supremacy. After decades of studio dominance, filmmakers had seized unprecedented creative power. Michael Cimino embodied that moment perfectly. Fresh off the critical and commercial triumph of The Deer Hunter, Cimino was given full control over his next film, a sprawling Western titled Heaven's Gate. United Artists, a studio known for trusting filmmakers, approved Cimino's vision with minimal oversight. That trust quickly became catastrophic. Cimino demanded hundreds of takes per scene, tore down and rebuilt entire sets because roads were inches too narrow, and delayed production for weeks to wait for the right natural light. The filming schedule ballooned, crew morale collapsed, costs spiraled. The original budget of roughly $11 million grew to over $40 million. When Heaven's Gate finally premiered, critics were merciless. The initial cut ran over 3 hours and was widely condemned as indulgent and incoherent. United Artists pulled the film from theaters, re-edited it, and re-released it, only to meet the same result. The financial losses were severe enough that United Artists was sold shortly afterward to MGM, effectively ending its era as a filmmaker-driven studio. Heaven's Gate did more than fail. It ended the new Hollywood era. Studios reasserted control, imposed tighter budgets, and began requiring test screenings, executive approvals, and rigid production schedules. Director freedom never fully recovered.
On your knees.
You dare ask the proconsul of the Roman Empire?
I asked it of Julius Caesar. I demand it of you.
Cleopatra, 1963. The damage? Nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. Cleopatra stands as the original cautionary tale of unchecked spectacle. The film began production in London, but almost immediately fell into trouble. Elizabeth Taylor became seriously ill, resulting in hospitalizations that shut down filming entirely. Sets sat unused while costs continued to rise. Rather than salvage the existing footage, the studio made the extraordinary decision to scrap the production and begin anew. Filming moved to Rome with a new director, Joseph L. Mankiewicz, new scripts, and freshly constructed sets. Taylor's salary reached $1 million, unheard of at the time, and her off-screen affair with co-star Richard Burton became an international scandal, keeping the film in the press for reasons unrelated to its quality. Delays accumulated. The budget climbed past $44 million, making Cleopatra the most expensive film ever produced at that point. When released, it became the highest-grossing film of 1963, but that wasn't enough. The sheer scale of spending meant the movie still lost money initially. To stay solvent, 20th Century Fox sold off large portions of its back lot, permanently reshaping the studio and the city around it. Epic historical spectacles fell out of favor. Studios began demanding stricter oversight, capped budgets, and controllable productions.
Please, tell them that I am God.
The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996. The damage, total creative collapse, and career derailment. If Heaven's Gate represented excess, The Island of Dr. Moreau represented chaos. Director Richard Stanley envisioned a dark, philosophical adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel, but within days of shooting, conflicts with the studio and cast escalated beyond repair. Stanley was fired and forcibly removed from the production. He was replaced by John Frankenheimer, but problems multiplied rather than improved. Val Kilmer reportedly clashed with nearly everyone on set and required extensive schedule accommodations. Marlon Brando arrived late, refused to learn lines, and demanded eccentric additions, including improvised costumes and surreal creative choices. Scripts were rewritten daily, actors quit mid-production, production leadership changed repeatedly. At one point, Richard Stanley reportedly returned to the set in disguise just to observe the chaos. When the film was finally released, critics savaged it and audiences avoided it. Stanley's Hollywood career effectively ended for nearly 20 years. The production became legendary as a case study in how dysfunction at every level can destroy a film beyond repair.
Well, if you want to do something right, you've got to do it yourself.
Waterworld from 1995. The damage? Public embarrassment and perception disaster. Waterworld has long been cited as a massive flop, but the reality is more nuanced and more instructive. The production was plagued from the start. Large floating sets were damaged or destroyed by storms. Filming at sea caused delays, accidents, and massive cost overruns. Before release, the press labeled Waterworld the most expensive movie ever made, creating a narrative of failure before audiences saw a single frame. When the film debuted, box office returns were underwhelming domestically, but stronger internationally. Over time, home video sales and television rights allowed Waterworld to recoup much of its budget, but the damage had already been done. The film became shorthand for wasted money and unchecked ambition. Studios learned that public perception could be just as damaging as financial loss, and that controlling media narratives became a crucial part of modern filmmaking.
Captain John Carter, Virginia.
John Carter, 2012. The damage, Disney franchise ambitions, and executive fallout. John Carter was based on a century-old science fiction property that influenced some of the biggest franchises in history, but influence does not equal recognition. Disney struggled to market the film. Trailers failed to explain the story. The title offered no genre cues. Audiences had no reason to care. Despite a massive budget and experienced creative team, the film opened to weak box office numbers. Disney reportedly lost more than $200 million. Planned sequels were canceled almost immediately. Internal changes followed, including leadership shakeups and reevaluation of how franchises were developed. Studios became far more cautious about launching expensive original science fiction properties without clear branding or audience familiarity.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
Oh boy. Batman and Robin, 1997. The damaged long-term franchise shutdown. Following the darker direction of earlier Batman films, studio executives pushed for a lighter, toy-friendly approach. Bright colors, exaggerated performances, and heavy merchandising shaped the final product. Audiences rejected it completely. Critics ridiculed its tone, dialogue, and design. The damage was imminent. Not to mention all the ice puns from Arnold. Batman disappeared from theaters for nearly a decade. The failure forced Hollywood to reassess how superhero films should balance mass appeal with narrative credibility, paving the way for modern reboots. Cutthroat Island, 1995. The damage destroyed a studio and sank a genre. Cutthroat Island faced numerous delays, injuries, and reshoots. Costs ballooned as production dragged on. When finally released, the film was a commercial disaster. Carolco Pictures, already financially unstable, declared bankruptcy shortly after. Pirate films vanished from Hollywood for nearly 10 years until Pirates of the Caribbean revived interest in the genre.
Is that all?
The Golden Compass, 2007. The damage. studio restructuring, and abandoned franchise. The Golden Compass was designed to be the first chapter in a trilogy. While it performed well internationally, it struggled in the United States amid controversy and mixed reviews. Crucially, financial agreements gave international partners priority returns, leaving New Line Cinema with limited profits. Planned sequels were canceled. New Line Cinema lost independence and was folded into Warner Brothers, fundamentally restructuring the studio.
I'm just messing with you. Hey, brother! Yeah, you're not a Martian.
Mars Needs Moms, 2011. The Damage ended a studio's technological strategy. Disney hoped performance capture animation would be the future. Instead, audiences found the visual style unsettling and emotionally distant. Combined with weak storytelling, the film lost approximately $144 million. Disney abandoned performance capture animation and pivoted towards stylized CGI, leading to future success.
Can't defy the law. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair.
Cats, 2019. Damage creative reputations and studio confidence. Adapted from the beloved stage musical, Cats attempted cutting-edge visual effects that instead became a liability. Audience reaction was immediate and brutal. The studio rushed out updated VFX changes while the film was already in theaters. High-budget musical adaptations became far riskier propositions, and studios became more hesitant to rely on experimental visual effects. These films are remembered for failure, but their impact shaped everything that followed. Creative freedom, marketing strategy, franchise development, visual technology, and even studio survival were altered because of them. Hollywood learns slowly, but when it learns through catastrophe.